child needed a kidney, you, and you didn't have a donor and the wait was 10 years, but you had money in the bank, would you buy the kidney? You can answer that secretly or openly, but I can tell you that 62% of the physicians in the American Society of Nephrology said they would buy a kidney for someone in their family. So solving problems as ethically difficult and diverse as this one requires leadership, and I'm suggesting that you and I may supply this leadership. In summary, there's a donor organ shortage, no argument. The laws are inconstant, no argument. Politics and religion may clash, we'll hear that in the final speaker. Selling kidneys is inevitable, it's happening, and it should be legal and regulated. It's okay with most doctors, 62%. It's going on in the United States and Israel. And it's much like prohibition in the United States, where we said you couldn't have alcohol, but everybody drank until we repealed prohibition. And today it's fascinating. There's one country in the world where you can't get a donor kidney from a cadaver, but you can buy one on the open market, and that's Iran. And that is the quintessential example of craziness that I can think of. Thank you. And now we will go on to the third speaker, who comes from Israel. And Dr. Aram Steinberg will talk to us from Hadassah Hospital. And he comes from and I asked him before his presentation, he knew Michael Friedlander, who is the man who gave me those statistics on what's happening in Hadassah. I'll just take one moment to get his slide on, and we'll see if we are technologically able to do this. Dr. Steinberg, here's your pointer, and here's the space bar. Okay?
This one?
Right here. Can you see it all right? Here, let me put a little light on for you. I'm sorry you can't see more. There's the space bar.
Oh, okay.
Okay?
Thank you. Thank you very much. The issues of organ transplantation are wider than kidney transplantations, obviously. I think kidneys are being discussed more widely because there's a greater need for them, and there are more availabilities which are borderline ethical, legal or not, but in fact there are many other issues that are involved in organ transplantation. Because of shortage of time, I don't know how much I can bring into the discussion, but I'll try some of it, and you will stop me whenever time is up. Let's start from the recipient's point of view. From a Jewish point of view, there is a major difference between an experimental and a proven therapeutic aspect. It is clear today that we are beyond the stage of the experiment in most organs, and therefore we can talk about a therapeutic process which actually involves one and only one question, and that is the balance of risks involved in this type of operation. A heart transplant for the recipient would be permissible if the risks and the survival are much greater, if the benefit and the survival are much greater than not doing this particular operation, and it's not different from any other operation. I'm saying it because in the past there have been decisors who made the point that a recipient is not, that a patient is not allowed to become a recipient of any organ, or certainly of the major organs, and that was because in those days the risk involved in these types of transplants were enormous. When Christian Bernard did his first heart transplant, the patient survived 16 days. So without doing this operation, he would live maybe half a year or a year, and by doing the operation, you significantly shortened his life, and therefore there were oppositions to becoming a recipient. This has changed because the facts have changed, and therefore that is a simple assumption today that the recipient is allowed to undergo almost all organ transplants which are beyond the experimental level. Now, when we talk about donor sources, we have actually several potential and actual possibilities. Best would have been, and I think that the whole discussion here would be in vain, if we would have artificial organs or tissues, and all we had to do, go to the Supersal and buy a heart number 9, a red color or white color, and do the organ transplant, and then obviously there will be no problem from any point of view. But unfortunately, at the moment, it doesn't exist. Another possibility, which from a Jewish point of view certainly, and I think from most ethical points of view, would be okay if we could have an animal as a source for organ donation. Let's say we genetically engineer a pig, and we take his heart, his liver, his kidney, and we transplant it. That would be perfectly fine, including, and I mentioned pigs specifically for 2 reasons. One is that people think that from a Jewish eat a pig is a terrible thing. How can we take parts of the pig and save our lives? But obviously it's nonsense. You're allowed to do it. To save life, you're allowed to do much more than using a pig. On the other hand, the pig apparently is the closest to the human being. I'm not talking now from behavior point of view, which probably is true, but I'm talking immunological point of view. From that point of view, the pigs probably are closer to the human being than most other animals, and with genetic engineering, it would be possible to make them even closer so that the rejection problem will be no problem. However, there are other issues with all kinds of viruses that are symbiotic with animals and can cause epidemics and disasters to human beings. So at the moment, it's not a possibility. But I can envision in 10 years, in 15 years, that next to Downstate or NYU or Einstein, there will be a pig stall, and every day a pig will be sacrificed, and you'll take his organs, and you'll save lives. And that will be perfectly fine. There will be no problem, except for, I think, a very small minority of animal supporters that might think that this is something terrible. But I think most people will agree that saving human life is worthwhile. Probably the most promising thing in the near future will be either therapeutic cloning or using stem cell and directing it into creating organs. And I'm not talking about fertility stem cell usage, but I'm talking about the therapeutic one, meaning that after 5 days or so, you take out the stem cells and you program them to become either a liver, a heart, or a kidney. And if it's cloned from your own self, then obviously the whole rejection problem is set aside, and then we'll have enough organs to save lives. But all these are futuristic aspects. What we have today are either human live donors or human cardiac death donors or human brain death donors. And these are the real issues that we are faced with today, and combined we don't have enough organs, not only not enough kidneys, but not enough hearts and not enough livers and not enough pancreases and so on, and therefore there is a true shortage because that's all that is available. I will spend a few minutes to discuss some of these sources and maybe address some of the issues that have been raised by the 2 previous speakers. When we are talking about a human life donor, the issues that come up are what are the risks to the donor. So obviously, if a person wants to donate his heart in order to save someone else, that would be absolutely prohibited, because the risk to him is killing him in order to save someone else, and obviously we're not killing one person for the sake of someone else. But if we're talking about a kidney, or if we're talking about a partial liver or a partial lung, the risks to the donor are quite low, and therefore with his informed consent, provided the consent is truly informed, which is an issue that I don't have time to get into, but assuming that we can get a real informed consent, then the risks are quite low, and that would be a noble act to be done if it's done altruistically. The question raised is, can we do it and compensate the donor? And as